I think that this is going to be a very interesting video. Little disclaimer before we continue, before we move forward with the video. Everything that I'm going to be discussing in this video is just going to be the tip of the iceberg. Do have in mind that this game is going to be available to a whole new audience. And then again, like always, if you are already familiar with the 5th edition of Dungeons & Dragons, then you're going to be just in the right place. This is going to be the very same thing, or at least close to the very same thing. We're going to be speaking about the differences of multiclassing in this video, and how can you multiclass in the 5th edition. Also, if you're a veteran and you're already aware of all of this, and I failed to miss something, to mention something that you think is very important that a new player could get advantage of, then be my guest. Please, the comment section is down below, and it's really going to help quite a lot of people, any kind of advice that you have, because multiclassing, it's not beginner friendly, not at all. Not many of this stuff that we have in this game is beginner friendly, so we're here for all the same. We're all here for this very same purpose: to help new people, to help new players that are interested in playing Baldur's Gate, but they are not so familiar with the things that the Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition have to offer. That said, the very first point that I want to mention, the very first thing that I want to say to you, is that you should approach this kind of thing with a different kind of mindset that kind of mindset that you have in different games. So let's say, for example, that I know that this is something very appealing to a whole lot of people. Maybe you want to make a battle mage, but a battle mage is not available as a main warrior, and maybe you want to be a ranger that uses magic, or maybe you want to be a paladin that uses bows and whatnot. So it works different in this game than it works in different games. Multiclassing in this game, it's actually going to offer you that option. I know that it is very appealing for players that they want to make warriors that can cast spells and just be battle warriors and whatnot. But the very first advice that I'm going to give you is that if you're interested in that, then might as well just go through the basic path of the fighter, because there is a subclass of the fighter in case you want to do a battle mage. There is a subclass that the fighter has, that is the Eldritch Knights. It was more difficult to accomplish in previous CRPG games like Neverwinter Nights, because for Neverwinter Nights to actually access the new subclasses, it was a little bit more difficult because to get the access, to get the requirements to get a new subclass, you would have to multiclass before you actually get the desired subclass. Now in here, if you take the fighter path, at level 3 you are going to get the chance to get the choice. I'm sorry, I'm just confusing about anyways, at some point you are going to get the choice to be an Eldritch Knight, which is going to be a warrior that is going to be based on melee and magic as well. Or for example, if you want to go to a rogue assassin that also uses spells as well, then just follow the very same pipeline that you have right here. At level 3 you are going to be able to play as the arcane trickster. So there's many subclasses available to you in the game if you want to do that kind of multi-class that is going to have a predetermined path for you to be able to accomplish easier that thing that you're trying to accomplish. That said, if still you have seen people out there discussing about multiclass and how popular it'll be, and you still want to dive into multiclass, I want to clarify a little bit that to multiclass you better watch a guide if you're not familiar with this game, because multiclass is going to offer you quite a lot of benefits, but some people will argue that it's going to be more of a downside bonus than the benefit that you are going to get if you multiclass. So let's discuss about that, and let's get rid of the polemic situation, kind of the discussion when it comes to multiclass, because there's kind of a polemic situation. I know that I'm going to trigger quite a lot of people in here, because there's a whole lot of discussion whether multiclass is worth it or multiclass is not worth it. The very first thing that you need to know about multiclass is that there's some people that thinks, this is not my opinion, I'm just giving you the information that you need to know. There's some people that believe that multiclassing, it's actually not worth it, because it's going to deter you from getting the high-end abilities that a mono class would have. So at the highest level of your character, you're going to be stripping your character of that, and we're going to be delving a little bit more on that. But there's also a multi-class veteran purist. There's nothing wrong with that. That is going to tell you That is completely wrong. I do not care about having the end game ability because I am getting these bonuses from early game classes. And to make it more simpler for you to understand multi-classing a character, choosing into different characters, it's just basically going to allow you to get access to some of the stuff of the early levels of one class, and it's going to strip you away of the end game levels of the monoclass. So that being said, that is the basics, and let me tell you how it works. So the very first early beginner common misconception that you may feel is that, for example, let's say that I want to make a cleric. I want to make a cleric, and when I make my cleric at level 6, I think I'm going to make a war cleric, a warrior cleric. At level 6, when I level up to level 7, to multi-class, I'm going to choose the fighter class. But do be aware, and this is very important for you to know, that at that level 7 you're not going to be getting a feat or a level 7 fighter. You're going to get a level 1 fighter. The reason why we want to do that is because probably you want some proficiencies that your class is not going to be able to allow you to do. So for example, being able to make a warrior, it's going to allow you to have a heavy armor proficiency, and on the other hand, for example, the cleric doesn't allow you to use heavy armor, so you probably want that. That is your goal. You want to make a cleric that is very tanky and that can also tackle the battlefields. But this chart that I have for you right here, this is what you're actually going to get. When you multi-class, you're not going to get all of the proficiencies that you like from one class. So then again, as you can see, when you multi-class into a fighter and you get the proficiencies that you're going to get from that fighter, you are going to get only medium armor, which is something that you already have with your cleric, meaning there is no point on you multi-classing into a fighter from a cleric if all you want to do and to have is that heavy armor, because you're not going to gain that. Take a look at this and actually save this thing, take a screenshot or anything, because this is what you're going to get as multi-class, as proficiencies that you are going to gain when you multi-class. And as you can see, for sorcerer and wizard, you are not going to gain any proficiencies. For the rest of the characters, these are the proficiencies that you are going to get if you multi-class into that specific something. Now, if that's the case, then why would I like to multi-class? Why does people like to multi-class? Well, basically, then again, multi-classing is going to strip you immediately at once from the endgame skills. But I would also argue that actually on Baldur's Gate, you're not going to receive that much of a deterrent. The argument for people that do not like to multi-class is that you're going to strip your character away from the chance, from the ability to reach the endgame abilities, the endgame skills that you're going to get. So I'm going to be using a kind of a multi-class build, just the basic top of it, like I said, the tip of the iceberg, for you to be aware of what is it that you're going to gain from multi-classing. One very popular example, one very popular thing to do is just multi-classing a fighter with every single other class, because fighter at level 2 he gets action surge, which basically grants you to do an extra action. So basically for rogue it would be very powerful to be able to enter into stealth and then do a stealth damage and then go back into stealth and then do a stealth damage, especially for the Gloomstalker. That would be something very popular to do. There's a whole much boons that you would get from there, but just to have in mind that this is the tip of the iceberg and that this is something that you are trying to accomplish. Then again, you shouldn't divide that much your class into something different, because it's going to be tricky. Now, another thing is that since you're going to be dividing your character class skills, abilities and whatnots, you should also have in mind synergies. If you're going to multi-class a character, usually people, the argument that they do is that you better have a very nice synergy right there that justifies the losing power that you're going to get from multi-classing. One of those examples is that when you multi-class into something, you need to have the prerequisite requirements for that class to be able to make that possible. So for example, these are the stats that I have right here, but a properly built character, this is not how it's going to work. A properly built character is going to min-max the stats and the ability scores that you have right here. And for example, let's say that I am going to make a a cleric, then again, cleric or a druid, I'm going to lower all my points into intelligence because I'm never going to be using intelligence spells. So I'm never going to be using that. I'm going to get rid of that. And then I do want to have somewhat of high dexterity because of armor class, but maybe also I want constitution, or maybe also I want to be a charismatic character to be able to bypass some difficulty checks around here and there. The thing is that you're never going to be using intelligence, never. They are never going to be affecting your attack rolls for the spells that you are going to be using. But oh boy, let's say for example that you want to multi-class your cleric. Let's change the class right here. We want to multi-class the cleric. Let me give you an example. This is going to be a example of a build. A Thunder Cleric is going to get Tempest at level 2, I believe, which is going to basically grant you the highest damage of a lightning spell. But maybe the lightning spells that I'm going to get as a Tempest Cleric is not going to be as good as the one that a Wizard would have. So that's what I want to do. I want to have that level 2 feat for my character. But then again, I'm going to have my Wisdom at 13. And then I'm going to have to raise my intelligence at maximum because that's what my main class is going to be. So I'm going to be a wizard sorcerer with some wisdom to be able to unlock the multi-class. And then again, to multi-class into something, 13 is always the sweet spot. You basically have to have +1. So if you want to multi-class into something, if you would want to multi-class into a warrior right here, you would need 13 strength. Or if you want to multi-class into a rogue, you would need 13 dexterity, so on and so forth for every single class. And I'll also leave in the video description a chart for you to be able to get this as much as you want. But then again, going back to the subject at hand, that is not going to be efficient because you're going to be dividing your main stats of damage, the rolls of damage from wisdom to intelligence. So what you really want to do is that, for example, maybe I want to have that Storm Tempest Cleric and then take away these points right here, max out wisdom, because then after I have gotten that one that I want, maybe I can instead go for a druid, because maybe one of the spells that the druid has, the lightning spells that the druid has, maybe they are in line with that feat that I want, which is divinity for Tempest, or I just can't remember right now, it's just an example. Then I would be taking advantage of the wisdom because when I multi-class back to the druid, I will already have this thing right here. Or maybe I could also do it with the bard, because the bard it's also going to be taking advantage of the spells that he casts. He is going to have lightning spells. He probably has better lightning spells than the spells that the Storm Cleric has. And his damage for the spells, the attack rolls that the Bard is going to have, it's also going to be coming from wisdom, so I'm not going to be wasting any of that. Now that that has been established, we have this chart that we have right here, and this is why it's probably a best idea to multi-class in Baldur's Gate, because Baldur's Gate is going to have a maximum level cap of level 12. And the whole argument of people that not like to multi-class that much is that, for example, if we make that Storm Cleric that I was telling you about and we multi-class it into a Druid to be able to get advantage of that Divinity Tempest, then we're not going to get access to the Archdruid, which comes at level 20, and the Archdruid, it's actually a power spike. There's going to be power spikes, some specific levels where your character is going to become stronger rather than the other ones, and that whole argument is that the monoclass is going to be able to access to that final end game skill that otherwise if you multi-class you're going to be stripping yourself away from it for just because you want to choose a early level skill that is probably not going to be as good as that endgame level skill. But on the other hand, Baldur's Gate is just going to get to level 12, and at level 12 the only thing that you're going to get is not going to be a power spike, because the only thing that you're going to get is going to be a ability score improvements, which is something that happens at level 4 level 8, and level 12. And you actually do not have to take it at 4 because you have, for example, with Druid you have the wild shape improvements. With the rest of the classes you're going to have your very own different things. So then again, at level 12, an extra ability score improvements, it's actually not going to be that huge of a deal. So it might actually be justified for you to be able to take 2 levels from different classes. But do have in mind that one of those power spikes that I was telling you about is the spell level, and this works as different things, like for example melee characters are going to have their very own power spikes, but with casters, for example, every time that you reach a new school tier of spells, like we have the first, the second, the third, the fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth and ninth, those are going to be power spikes because all of those spells, they are that much more powerful than the rest of the spells that you used to have on the previous school tiers. So for example, at level 10, at level 11, you're going to get access to the 6th tier, and I think that all of the 6th tier skills are not available in Baldur's Gate, so that is something that you need to have in mind. But the ones that we actually do have, they are going to be a huge power spike for your character. So if you multi-class to make that kind of war cleric druid with lightning damage improve with the divinity feat, that is not going to be possible. You're not going to have access to the 6 spells because you are going to be locked for the 2 levels that you spent on the cleric, and that is going to be applied for the very same thing. But let's say, for example, and again this is theory, maybe the only thing that you want from the druid, the maximum amount of stuff that you want from the druid, is that at level 2 you're going to get the wild shape. At level 4 you're going to improve the wild shape. At level 8, that is when you're going to get the maximum level of your wild shape. So if you want to get the maximum level of the wild shape, you're going to get that at level 8, meaning that you have 4 more levels that you can either spend right here on the druid, or maybe you want to spend them into something else to multi-class and to make a synergy for your wild shape with a different class. And it doesn't really matter that you're not going to get access to that level ability score improvements, because the only thing that you were planning for your build was getting that wild shape improvements. So again, this is just the tip of the iceberg, but all of this discussion and all of this video, what I want for you to understand is all of this that you are seeing on the screen, everything that I am showing you, as you can see, it's knowledge of the basic skills or features that your class is going to get as they level up. So it's not just something as simple as pick different classes, because if you just pick different classes, the thing is that you are going to be able to respec your character as much as you like, so that is something really appreciated, and we'd not have to worry about the endgame skills that we have right here. So you are going to be able to respec your character. Just to have in mind that this is a feature focused mainly for veteran players or players that already have some kind of knowledge of how the classes level up, because there are some min-maxing things that you want to take from a class to make a multi-class character. But when you are in doubt, this is just an optional thing that you're going to have access to. You do not need to multi-class your character. And as a matter of fact, like I said, there's a whole lot of people that prefers by much the mono class, because you're going to get those power spikes by using a mono class. But like I said, something that I want to be very clear in this video is that at level 12 you're not going to get that huge power spike on Baldur's Gate, so there is a little bit more of versatility when it comes to multi-classing and the things that you're going to get in return, or diminishing returns, for leveling up a multi-class character. And oh boy, that was a long video. Hope that this information helps you, and remember that if you're a veteran, that you have a counsel, that you have a advice, that you have a tip or trick for new players, then be my guest. The box of comments section is just down below, and remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel before you close the door. I'll be seeing you goddamn gorgeous and beautiful people in the next one. Have a beautiful day, and goodbye.